it feels unlikely that he won't last the rest of the season.
Whoever their manager is, if Ancelotti doesn't stay after the next couple of years, is walking into one of the best squads in the world. I mean, if not the best squad in the world.
Over the last 18 months, I think it's hard to argue that he's not one of the 2 or 3 best right wingers in world football. What's up, Football Daily? Welcome back to Monday Vibes, the show where we round up the hottest topics from the weekend just past. Joining me today, Football Daily debut, Sam Rene from Sky Sports.
Hello. Pleasure to be here. Debut. Couldn't have come at a worse time for me after yesterday's result. Chelsea fan, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, terrible timing. But pleasure to make my debut anyway.
Yeah, pleasure to have you on board. If you've not seen Sam already, chatting to fans outside Premier League stadiums, then stay tuned. He may well appear on Football Daily videos in the future, and yeah, I'm sure you're going to be doing some more stuff on the Sky Sports channels.
You like to think so, if they like me. If they like me.
Yeah. Well, you got a good reception at Brentford a few weeks ago when we went down together. That was a good fun.
Very
good
family friendly place though, isn't it?
Very family friendly place. But I mean, there's no better place to start, is there, Sam, than the Carabao Cup final yesterday, where you were in attendance. I mean, where do we start with this? Liverpool 1, Chelsea 0. A lot of anticipation going into the game, given Liverpool's injuries, obviously without Salah, Nuñez, Alisson, Trent, Szobszlai, to name but a few. But Liverpool's experience told in the end. Virgil van Dijk scoring with 2 minutes remaining of extra time. I guess before we get into the game itself, Sam, like as a fan at the stadium, as a Chelsea fan this season, what does this loss in the final mean to you?
I mean, it obviously hurts. I think it would have been a brilliant opportunity for Pochettino to get a trophy. The fans are still a bit unsure about Pochettino, I'm guessing, with the ex-Spurs links. But I mean, it was difficult because I think the last 2 finals against Liverpool are exactly the same as this one, like dominating the game. I say dominating, but having the clear opportunities, but then just can't score. I don't know how that ball didn't go in the net yesterday. It was disappointing from that factor. And then we just seemed to drop off in extra time. I've seen Pochettino come out and say that the players wanted to play for penalties. I mean, that's never the way to go in a final.
Yeah.
You've just got to go all out or nothing. But it would have been a really good opportunity for him to sort of get the fans on his side and maybe push on to get higher in the Premier League table, maybe finish in the top 8. But, I mean, without a trophy this season, currently sitting in 11th as well, it doesn't look good now.
Yeah, it doesn't look great. I mean, it did feel quite telling for Pochettino. I mean, whoever got that shot of him, like head in hands while Nuñez jumps over the hoardings to hug Jurgen Klopp. I mean, that is just a great piece of kind of sports broadcasting. That, but I mean, it really did sum things up, I think, for Pochettino. I think you're right. It felt like such a big opportunity, this, in terms of, Chelsea fans, if Chelsea win that game, suddenly are like, oh, well, we've got the ex-Spurs manager and he's won a trophy with us, which he wasn't able to do at Spurs, which I think, that ingratiates himself with the fans instantly when, he has been under pressure. And on top of that, it felt like, this was an opportunity against a Liverpool side who have probably never been weaker this season. And the fact that there were so many opportunities, I mean, it was quite an even game, I think, overall. Liverpool did have more shots than Chelsea, 24-19, but Chelsea's XG in the end was 2.96 against Liverpool's 1.68. It's very rare. I know it's, after extra time as well, but so rare for Liverpool to concede over 2 expected goals in a game. Kelleher making that brilliant save from Palmer in the first half, didn't he? Endo blocked the rebound from Jackson. Sterling then has that goal disallowed for a very marginal offside for Nicholas Jackson. Gallagher then in the second half has those 2 brilliant chances, both set up by Cole Palmer. I mean, it did feel like Chelsea couldn't have done too much more. And yet even then, someone like Ibrahima Konate, had a brilliant game in terms of like snuffing out, opportunities before they got to Kelleher. But Liverpool were, as the game went on, especially, I feel like they were being broken on increasingly. And Chelsea, I guess, despite their dysfunctions in the forward line this year, you know, all Chelsea really needed was Cole Palmer to be on song, and he was in this game, for there to be a consistent threat from the Blues. Having said that, you know, if Endo isn't penalised for that, you know, offside, is he actually affecting play? It's hard to tell. I mean, you're obviously in the stadium, but like watching it back, it's like you can see why it was given. I can see why Liverpool fans are annoyed. I can see why Liverpool fans are annoyed, because it feels like Endo's obviously blocking Colwell's path, but then it doesn't feel like Colwell's actually making much of an attempt to get back into the box.
I had no idea what was going on with that offside, I'll be honest. I thought it was a goal. And I could see Colwell and the referee speaking. So I was like, okay, obviously there might have been a push or it might have been a block, but I didn't see... There was a small screen in front of me. I could see the highlights of the game and stuff. But I had no idea what was going on. Even with the Sterling offside, like, it was difficult to tell. But it's just two big moments in the game, which obviously, again, didn't go either side's way. But I think there were positives for Chelsea. Yeah. Some good performances. I know we didn't score and we lacked that cutting edge at the forward line, but Jackson, I think he played really well. Caicedo played really well as well, I think. Petrovic has been brilliant since he's come in. Gusto as well. He started the game a bit flaky, but then he really grew into it. Seems to be the way
with him, doesn't it?
Yeah, he grows into the game a lot. But yeah, we had big chances. Gallagher again, I think Gallagher's been brilliant since we've had this sort of change in form in the last 4 or 5 games, where I think we've actually played pretty well. He's just been running non-stop. And that's what you need in a team that's sort of lacking experience. Like, we had a really young squad yesterday. Yes, Liverpool brought a lot of teenagers on, but we're also a very young team. And it's still a work in progress, whoever the manager is, really. But yeah, credit to Jackson yesterday. Enzo was a bit quiet, but Caicedo, I think, really dominated, as well as Endo. To be fair, Endo for Liverpool was brilliant as well. I think Konate, like you mentioned, was brilliant. I think the biggest sort of upset for me would be Liverpool's depleted squad. Like, no Salah, no Nuñez, no Szobszlai, and we still couldn't beat Liverpool. So it's like, if those players were there, what would the score have been?
Like, yeah, I mean, it does. But I mean, you're right to talk about Chelsea's young squad there. I mean, it's been, you know, a talking point, you know, ever since last season when the Todd Boehly kind of project got underway. But it was telling, and there was a lot of talk about it yesterday in the coverage. But it did feel it did feel telling that this was a, you know, Liverpool brought on, you know, 3 teenagers, you know, who all ended the game. And, you know, that's the most teenagers that have taken part for one team in the League Cup final since 2007, when Theo Walcott and Cesc Fabregas were two of those teenagers for Arsenal, 2 of 4 in that game. Which I believe was that I think that might have been the one that Chelsea won, and John Terry got kicks in the face by Abu Dhabi.
Those were the days. Glory days.
But obviously, comparing that, you know, academy products coming on for Liverpool to Chelsea's very expensively assembled squad of young players, you know, I guess it is just another sign of where those two projects are in terms of what Klopp's built at Liverpool, in terms of the continuity between academy level and the first team, and also the fact that McConnell and Clark, you know, were bought from 2 clubs in the northeast. Sunderland, well, I mean, McConnell was really young when he joined from Sunderland in 2019, but then Clark joining from Newcastle in 2021 for, I think, £1.5 million. You know, even then at that age, Klopp's, you know, was very insistent with him that he'd get a path to the first team, and it's happened now. And all 3 of those players, I think, performed really admirably in extra time, whereas this Chelsea side, like you were saying, you know, looked really, really tired in extra time, and Pochettino, it kind of felt like Pochettino had done all he could, and he looked kind of defeated at the end. That, like, you know, even with what was a decent tactical plan throughout the game, against a Liverpool side that were depleted but still had Van Dijk, still had Konate, still had you know, someone like Endo performing out of his skin in midfield. McAllister, I thought, also had a brilliant game. But they still couldn't quite do it. You know, Robertson also back at left back as well. So that, you know, they were up against an experienced back line. But, you know, even with Gravenberch coming off in the first half and forcing Joe Gomez to come on.
What did you think about that challenge?
I think I'm amazed that Caicedo got away with without even a card. I must admit, I think. yeah, it feels I don't know. The thing is, it's one of those ones that you've seen in the Premier League the last couple of years where, sometimes that has even been a red. But I think it probably was, I think it was at least a yellow.
Yeah, so I think it's sort of an orange, one of those orange cards. It was similar to the Maguire one in Fulham.
Yes.
Where you sort of go to get the ball, and we've all been there playing football. Like you accidentally stand on someone's foot or ankle. The Liverpool bench, you could see them; they were absolutely furious.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you're right to compare it to the Maguire one. I feel like the Caicedo one feels almost a little bit more out of control because it looks like he doesn't quite know what's going on there. And the fact that Gravenberch is planted just makes that difference, doesn't it? It just makes it worse.
Actual challenge in his ankle. It's never nice. It's horrible.
So I think Klopp was saying after the game that that's a potential ligament injury. So we'll see what happens there. Liverpool's midfield is absolutely depleted at the moment. But yeah, I guess let's shine a light on. I think my man of the match was Wataru Endo. Absolutely dominated in the midfield in a game which I thought actually would go a bit differently. I kind of expected Chelsea to dominate midfield given the form of Gallagher, and actually Enzo's been kind of coming into his own a bit more recently. But actually, Liverpool still kind of controlled the centre of the park, and it was Chelsea who were kind of hitting Liverpool on the counter-attack more. And Endo, 89 touches, only Van Dijk had more for Liverpool, 6 tackles on the night. I think he only missed 2. I think 75% success rate with his tackles, created a chance as well. For 20 million euros, actually not a small amount fee to pay for someone of Endo's age, but given Liverpool's struggles to get a defensive midfielder in last summer, and given that Endo actually started quite slowly and there wasn't that much faith in him, I think his form over the last 2 months has been absolutely brilliant, and another, I guess, example of Liverpool's ability to kind of recruit undervalued stars.
When you look at the other side, it's Caicedo versus Endo, and Endo's come out on top. Liverpool wanted Caicedo, so we've sort of done him a favour in that way.
Liverpool were willing to pay basically as much as Chelsea were.
But Endo, he definitely dominated yesterday in that midfield. Every time Chelsea won the ball back, he'd be there to win it back from them and then start the counter-attack. So I think he was a massive...
His physicality does kind of go quite underrated, and then his ability to then turn and pick out a pass, I think it was for Luis Diaz in the first half, was just absolutely brilliant. And it's the kind of thing that you expect from an Enzo or a Caicedo. Not to say that Caicedo wouldn't have been a success at Liverpool had he gone there last summer. But anyone you want to shout out before we move on, Sam?
Cole Palmer for me. Just watching him, he's just brilliant. I kind of feel sorry for him that he played so well and he didn't score or get an assist. Or there were so many times that he'd cut back and find an amazing pass across the pitch. But there was a couple of times as well where sort of Liverpool's right-hand side was very open. I think it was one of the Gallagher chances where he couldn't get out of his feet properly, but there was a few chances where Chilwell was sort of overlapping. And maybe if he'd sort of looked up a bit sooner and played it, there was one where I think he had a shot rather than playing the pass. I think it might have been that one with Chilwell, but it was difficult because, again, he was just amazing. He absolutely sort of dominated that right-hand side. He was always free. Him against Robinson was a great battle to watch as well. Gusto as well. And Kelleher for Liverpool. He seems to be Chelsea's kryptonite at the moment. So every time he's played against us in the cup final, we haven't scored. So it's whether he's been put in there as a bit of mind games, but we'll see.
Obviously scored the winning penalty. In that last shootout as well. You're right to highlight Palmer and Gusto. I think for Chelsea in general this season, I feel like that is a big positive. That right hand side is probably one of the strongest in England. Actually, I think with Palmer and Gusto overlapping there. I think Malo Gusto has really come into his own recently. But I guess congratulations Liverpool, 10 League Cups now, stretching their lead as the most successful club in the competition. One of 4 potential trophies that are up for grabs for Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp in his final season in charge.
On his farewell tour.
Exactly. But I guess before moving on, Sam, I want to get your take on this. Pochettino now, like you say, 11th in the league, has lost out on a potential piece of silverware this year. It feels unlikely that he won't last the rest of the season, but do you feel like come the summer that his job is in danger?
I mean, he looked very defeated yesterday after the game. I still have faith in him. Might be a bit difficult to say after losing a cup final, but it's just I don't know where we would go from Pochettino. I mean, we've tried it. We've had Potter, obviously Tuchel. A lot of Chelsea fans, including myself, are gutted to see him go.
Available in the summer.
I mean, I don't see how.
Doesn't happen under Burnley,
I don't
it?
see how they could go back to Tuchel. I mean, I would love Tuchel to come back in, but yeah, I can't see them getting rid of Pochettino. Like I said, I don't know where you'd go. I mean, there's no obvious name out there, especially.
Also, who are you able to attract?
Exactly, yeah. With people looking at it and saying they've signed all these players, they aren't related to potentially what Pochettino wanted. They're just players that are built for the future. And if they can't come in straight away and make an impact, it's going to happen again. So it's difficult to see who would come in. Again, you'd have to go for a project manager, and then you've got to give them time. So that's just the reality.
It's going back to square one, isn't it?
It's the reality of where Chelsea are at the moment. We need a long-term project. As much as it's disappointing not winning trophies immediately and not playing well immediately, but in the longer run, you'd like to think that we can put these big runs together of trophies like previous years, like under Mourinho, winning a Champions League. And I mean, I can't remember the last time we won a Premier League title. It feels like so long ago. But a win yesterday would have definitely given him a lot more time under a lot of Chelsea fans. But for me, I think just see if we can finish top 8, I think would be good. Some type of European football. I mean, top 4 is definitely out of the question.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Top 6 potentially as well. But I think if we win our game in hand, you look at the table, we go up to around 8th. So top 8, I think, is definitely an improvement from 10th last season. I mean,
and it's probably not much higher than most people were expecting this year. I think I said Chelsea are capable of a top 6 finish. But obviously, given the circumstances, given that squad turnover, given it's Pochettino's first season in charge, given the feeling around the club, it was always going to be a big task to really get Chelsea into contention that top 6.
Still in the FA Cup. There's a chance for us to win a trophy and finish in the top 8. And I think that would be, I wouldn't say a successful season, but I think that would be a season that I would take.
It's a positive step from last year, isn't it?
Forward, yeah.
Like you say, Chelsea leads in the FA Cup this week. Before Brentford, Newcastle, and then Arsenal in the league. So some tough fixtures coming up. Liverpool have Southampton on Wednesday, then Forest in the league, and then City after Sparta Prague in the Europa League. City in the league on the 10th. Huge one that for the title race. We'll get onto the title race again in a second, but first we've got to go to Old Trafford, of course, because Man United not putting in a great display. 2-1 it finished to Fulham, ending what was a really positive start to 2024 for Man United. They'd been unbeaten in this calendar year, 5 games that run stretched to, but this result pegs them right back to 8 points behind 4th place Aston Villa, who of course beat Nottingham Forest on the weekend, and that gap could grow further still with Man City coming up at the Etihad this weekend coming up. Of course, Man United were without Rasmus Hojlund. They were without Luke Shaw, kind of 2 of their key players in recent weeks. That saw Victor Lindelof playing at left back, which I'm not, I still don't quite get the logic of, given that there's Diogo Dalot is capable of playing there. I know he's been very good at right back of late, but stylistically it feels weird to have Lindelof playing at left back. Omari Forson also forced to make his first Prem start of the season. Marcus Rashford up top managed just 1 shot on target all game. Harry Maguire managed 4 shots this game, and I think that was probably indicative of United's performance, to be honest. The fact that Harry Maguire was United's biggest goal threat. They actually ended with more XG than Fulham, but a lot of that came in the final 10-15 minutes. At Old Trafford, it's just kind of unacceptable for a United side to really be coasting that much up until 70 minutes.
I think it's just the consistency, isn't it? Like you say, a really good start to the year and then a step backwards when you get defeated at home by Fulham. Yeah. I mean, it's strange for me watching Man United because they seem to sort of kick into gear once they go a goal behind. They only seem to realise, all right, we need to win this game. But then again, Fulham made some good substitutions, bringing on Traore late on against a tiring Manchester United team who were trying to get back into the game. I think it's brilliant. I mean, Fulham, credit to them. I think they played really, really well. Obviously, Man United weren't great, but I think Fulham definitely deserve a lot of plaudits for their performance, having I think it was like 17 shots, which is pretty crazy at Old Trafford to be a team that's sort of mid-table.
Weirdly enough, I think that's actually the 5th most shots the team has had at Old Trafford this season,
really?
Which is pretty damning. Like, it should be a kind of a bit of an exception, but I think Wolves had more on the opening day of the season. I mean, not to take away from Fulham, because it was a great performance. I mean, Alex Iwobi was, of course, great on the day. Obviously scored a great winner, like you say. Adama Traore's introduction was brilliant from Marco Silva. Like, really read the game well there. Rodrigo Muniz didn't score, but probably should have scored. Hit the post, forced a good save from Onana as well. He's got 4 in his last. Well, he had 4 in his last 3 before this game. But it still feels like the team that United put out were capable of getting a result. I think, I guess worryingly, and maybe inevitably, given his age, this was probably the first game that we've really seen Kobbie Mainoo struggle in, from a defensive standpoint at least. I think him and Casemiro as a midfield partnership just didn't really click in this game.
That seemed like a big loss as well when Casemiro had to come off.
Yeah.
I don't know if that sort of changed the game plan from Fulham slightly, where they found a bit more space. There was that Iwobi chance where he just seemed to pick up the ball through the lines and drive at the Man United defence, and they sort of seems to part ways. Yeah,
absolutely parted ways. I mean, how Casemiro and Mainoo let the ball get between them there was bad, and then also Casemiro and Varane at fault for a kind of passage of play that led to Andres Pereira's chance in the first half. Slightly worrying times, but equally, I think, United just have to pick themselves up as quickly as possible after this. They are without Rasmus Hojlund.
That's a big
next weekend against Man City, which is massive. And so far this season, we haven't seen Rashford be able to perform as a centre forward. That Hojlund injury couldn't have come at a worse time, really.
Seems concerning that you didn't have. I mean, Maguire had 4 shots.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how many Rashford had, but
I think he had 2 in total.
Without Hojlund there, the difference is quite worrying.
This
actually,
isn't really a focal point
ahead of Manchester City. It's like where your goals going to come from?
And I think that the problem with that Hojlund injury is that it's completely destabilised that forward line. Like, Garnacho has really come into his own on the right hand side of the attack. Marcus Rashford was playing his best football of the season for the last few weeks on the left. Not, of course, neither of those players in those positions. The balance of that attack just looks off at the moment, when it was just clicking into gear, because Hojlund was not getting much service up until the last 5 weeks.
With a question about Bruno Fernandes as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on his season so far?
It's not been great. He actually had, I think, the most shots of any United player in this game, and actually was probably the only player in the forward line really kind of consistently doing something in this game. But generally speaking, this season has been probably one to forget for Bruno Fernandes.
Due to the inconsistencies in the side, maybe, that when he doesn't perform, United don't perform. When he does perform, he obviously needs the players around him to perform. But
I think it's a number of factors. I think there's that. There is certainly that United's attacking structure just hasn't been there this season. But equally, I think it's just, he's just played so much football over the last 5 years now. I mean, he joined United over 4 years ago now, January 2020, and has barely missed a game since then. So I think that does take its toll. The lack of a consistent midfield behind him means that he's having to do probably more defensive work than he should. There are a number of factors with Bruno Fernandes, but certainly his form has been a major factor in United's season. Let us know your thoughts on Man United. Again, like Pochettino, lots of talk from Ten Hag this week saying that him and Jim Ratcliffe are well aligned in terms of their vision for the club. Obviously, with this with Ratcliffe, holding more and more influence at the club as we draw closer to the summer. Do you think that Ten Hag's position is under threat? I think potentially, if United don't kick on before the end of the season. But then again, this could just be a minor blip. Also, City next weekend will probably be another minor blip. We'll see. But certainly, United's top 4 hopes once again look pretty slim. Let's get back to the top of the table now, because Arsenal, another big statement against Newcastle this time. I know Newcastle are not the Newcastle of last season. They have been very consistent this year, but a really, really convincing display from the Gunners.
They are in form at the moment.
Yeah,
absolutely banging the goals in. 25 goals in the last, I think it's 6 games.
Which I think is the most any team has started a calendar year in Premier League history.
And Arsenal of old used to drop off after the new year, but it seems that they have now just kicked into gear. Saka as well, 7 goals in his last 6 games. It's come at the right time for Arsenal. I mean, you look at Man City, when they sort of come into this time of the year, they sort of kick on, and now you've got Liverpool look like a depleted squad at the moment, but maybe this Carabao Cup win will spur them on to win a trophy in Klopp's final year. But Man City and Arsenal do look like the top 2 for me at the moment. They look dominant at the moment, and it's difficult to see, sort of, other than Man City, where sort of Arsenal can be. I mean, I think that, I don't want to say it, but I think out of Man City and Arsenal, I'd say Arsenal at the moment look probably favourites to me.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly are playing the better football, aren't they? They're certainly winning games in a more convincing fashion. Obviously, the City beating Bournemouth, like you said, but Bournemouth, could have got a draw there. In some ways that's worrying for the teams around them, because if City are winning those games, which they may otherwise be drawing, then when they do play well, that should make up that difference. But Arsenal best goal difference in the league now. That they haven't conceded over 0.5 expected goals this calendar year in the Premier League. That defence is just brilliant, and now the fact that they're actually scoring most of their chances, which means they're scoring 4 or 5 goals every game, which is really scary stuff. It is really scary stuff, and I think they lost in the Champions League, but the one change that Arteta made from that game was bringing Jorginho in and putting Havertz up top, taking Trossard out of the side, and it worked wonders. I mean, Jorginho, I know Jorginho has not been without his critics, but he has played a significant role now for Arsenal in just over a year of being there. When he came in last year, I remember him scoring that winner against was it Aston Villa in the title run-in. Obviously, it wasn't enough in the end for Arsenal to win the league, but when he's been called upon recently, he was brilliant against Liverpool in that 3-1 win, wasn't he? Back in, or back earlier this month. It feels like an age ago, but it was actually a few weeks ago. But was brilliant in that game, was brilliant in this game, completed 92 passes, which was 25 more than any other player on the pitch. Had, more touches than anyone else on the field as well, so really dictated the play. But it wasn't only that, I think with Jorginho, it's like, for sure he can, he's tidy on the ball. Yeah. There's no question about that, but I think it's just what he was doing as well, putting the ball over the top for Martinelli to set up Kai Havertz, was pinging those kind of balls in behind the defence on a number of occasions in this game.
I think Havertz as well has made a difference. In the last couple of games, it looks like maybe he's found his home at Arsenal in a way. At Chelsea, again, it was whether we play him up top on the wing, in the central attack and mid position. But Arsenal, it seems like he's playing as like a false 9, and that's the way Arteta wants to play, and it's working at the moment. Whether he can continue his goal scoring form's a different question, because that was always the problem at Chelsea. But 2 former Chelsea players doing the wonders for Arsenal, it seems.
Absolutely. Chelsea giving Arsenal that title power there. But it's an interesting one about Havertz, because I think I was speaking about him to Doogie and Sam about a month ago on Sunday Vibes, and they were both more of the thinking that Havertz was not worth the £65 million, because that's the kind of money that you should bring in for a player to win you the title. And I just think that's really harsh. I think if you're in this day and age in the Premier League, especially when you're competing with Man City, who have spent, £60 million on a number of players, many of whom don't even make the first team on a week-by-week basis, I think £65 million on Havertz is not make or break for a title. No. I think, Havertz was one of a number of players signed last year to push Arsenal onto the title. And so far, I think he's contributed quite a lot. I think it's 6 goals now in the Premier League. Yes, he's had games where he hasn't performed, but in that November period, he was crucial to Arsenal winning games. Now he is crucial to Arsenal winning games. Like you say, I think positionally he looks more comfortable. either playing in midfield as one of a midfield three or as a false nine. There doesn't seem to be kind of confusion there. It feels very clear that Arteta, very much has a plan for him game by game.
He's massively added to that squad depth as well. I think that could be the reason behind these big results, that they have a bigger squad. Like they can rest Trossard and bring Havertz in, and vice versa. They can bring Jorginho in, and it's massively helped their squad. They don't look tired at all. If anything, they look rejuvenated after the new year, which is, again, very scary for the other teams in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It's funny to see Arsenal, obviously start the season a bit slower, kick into gear now. It does feel a little bit like Pep's Man City, doesn't it? And they've got some favourable fixtures coming up as well. Sheffield United and Brentford in their next 2 Prem games. Then they host Porto in a game which could be, I guess, a bit make or break for their morale. They'll really want that momentum to carry on into the Champions League and turn that tire around, get into the quarterfinals. Then they have Chelsea, then they have Man City, which of course absolutely crucial. But Zinchenko and Partey could be back within the next week. Tomiyasu and Timber then the only players out injured. Arteta's got a lot to choose from there. He's got a really, really fresh squad compared even with Man City. Obviously, we talked about Liverpool's title hopes and Liverpool's injury problems, sorry. And on the subject of Saka, there's been a lot of chat on social media recently, YouTube videos, Twitter, on the Twitter timeline as well, about, is Saka world class? Is he not? I mean, in this kind of form, I think it's hard. It's really hard to argue with. I think even before, earlier in the season when he wasn't, getting the rub of the green, when he wasn't when he wasn't consistently putting in the performances, I think it was even hard to argue then. I think Saka, over the last 18 months, I think it's hard to argue that he's not one of the 2 or 3 best right wingers in world football. You look at who else, dominates those positions. You look at Leroy Sané's form this year, absolutely brilliant. You look at someone like Ousmane Dembele, who on form is absolutely world class as well. But aside from those 2, I don't think there's many who compare to Saka right now across Europe. Let us know if you have any shouts yourself. Oh, of course, Mo Salah. Injured at the moment. Salah is the best, isn't he? But I think Salah, Saka and Sané this season are clearly the two behind him. And if that's your definition of world class, then I don't really see what more Saka can do.
Him and Odegaard look like the main 2 for Arsenal. That they can pick the game up and they can just dictate it how they want. Odegaard especially, he just dominates the game for Arsenal.
Those little patterns of play, especially in the first half, where there are those little kind of round the corner balls from the 2 of them, they're just so in sync. He
rarely shoots, but he always finds a player in a bit of space, and it could be Saka, and Saka just looks so dangerous every time he picks the ball up. You can see the defenders are trying to usher him down the right, but then he'll twist and turn and come back in and score. He's pretty unstoppable like that, isn't he? Just such an unpredictable winger. Let us know your thoughts about that, about Saka, about Arsenal. Are they, now I know they're third, but are they title favourites now with that goal difference, with Liverpool's injuries, with Man City's kind of indifferent form, after what looked pretty promising after Kevin De Bruyne came back into the side? I say in different form, they're in good form. Yeah, they are in good form.
Their performances are not at the level that we maybe would expect from City at this point.
Trying to make it seem interesting, the Premier League title, but we all know Man City are probably going to go on to win it. But it'd be it wouldn't be nice to see Arsenal win, but maybe a different team to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can't have them winning 4 in a row, can we? I still, for some reason, I still fancy Liverpool. I think that Carabao Cup win, I just think the feeling around the club is great. And yes, lots of injuries at the moment, but I just think the Klopp factor, that last year, there's just something about that makes me think Liverpool are going to pull through, especially when Salah returns from injury as well. Okay, let's finish off the show with what was some breaking news this morning. And speaking of world-class players, speaking of dominant teams, Real Madrid reaching a verbal agreement with Bayern Munich for the signing of Alphonso Davies either this summer or the summer of 2025. They've been in contact with Davies for some time. Huni Calafat, who's the mastermind behind Real Madrid's recruitment of players like Vinicius, Rodrigo, Endrick now, even Fede Valverde in the last decade, has been in contact with Alphonso Davies' camp for the last few months. There's been a lot of talk in the papers about this. And yeah, Alphonso Davies' contract is up at Bayern Munich in 2025. So it basically comes down to whether Bayern Munich can tie him down to a new deal and then get a decent fee for him this summer or potentially next, or whether they are unable to do that and they're forced to sell him this summer. It feels unlikely that Bayern would let Alphonso Davies go for free.
I think they
will
try and get a fee for him. I imagine, I don't know how much you think he's worth, but I imagine something around £50 million maybe.
Yeah, even with a year left on his deal, I feel like Real Madrid might bargain for lower.
Yeah, I mean, he's, for me, best left back in the world in my opinion. And Real Madrid seems to be building a super squad at the moment, which is really scary for the rest of the teams in Europe. And whoever their manager is, if Ancelotti doesn't stay after the next couple of years, is walking into one of the best squads in the world. I mean, if not the best squad in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty mad. The idea of Alphonso Davies overlapping Vinny Jr. on the left. If they can get a top class right back in, then you've got them and Rodrigo on the right, even Valverde playing out there. Then that midfield of Tchouaméni, Camavinga and Bellingham. Of course, Modric scored an absolute beauty against Sevilla on the weekend, but I can't,
even throwing Mbappe into that if he does.
And then if they get Mbappe up top,
ridiculous.
Endrick, if he can, even if Endrick takes a couple of years to get going, like he looks like a really special player, and commercially Endrick is already on this pedestal. It feels like it kind of feels like it basically is. It's kind of. It's Florentino Perez's kind of Galacticos dream,
Galacticos
but Galacticos 2.0, but done in a far more, or 3.0, I guess, because we did have that second era with the 4 Champions Leagues, but kind of done in the way that I think it always should have been done, whereby you recruit these stars before they hit their peak. Yeah. And they're all probably going to hit their peak around the same time. You look at Bellingham and Vinicius Jr. where they are at the moment. And they could only they can only get better really.
It seems
it does feel pretty scary, especially for Spain as well. I guess this is the thing is with Barcelona's situation at the moment. I know they won La Liga last year and they have picked up a bit more form recently, but their financial situation isn't getting any better. Atletico Madrid will always be more financially limited than those two clubs as well. I mean, do you just see Real Madrid just winning every La Liga for the next 10 years?
You can't see anything other than that. I mean, they're building an absolute super squad that could go on to dominate football for 5 to 10 years. It's difficult to see how Barcelona get out of this financial mess. And with players like Mbappe and Davies sort of running down their contracts, Real Madrid have got money to spend because these players are coming for cut price fees. Like Mbappe could go for free. And Davies could be below 50 million. And a few years ago, that would have been crazy to think of. But they're saving money when they're getting these players for so cheap, which they could invest in other areas of the pitch, like a right back, or players that they think they could build their squad around, or squad depth, or bring in a big manager or something, give Jurgen Klopp the reins in 2 years' time or something. So, I can't see them not dominating football, even not just in Spain, but just in Europe. I mean, if Pep Guardiola leaves Manchester City in the next few years, I can't see another team that are going to compete. I mean, I don't think Man City will stay the way they are, but it's difficult to see past Real Madrid, really. Yeah,
it's certainly difficult to see past their dominance there. And I guess Bayern were already a little bit, thinking about a succession plan with getting Guerrero in last summer. My only
all signs point to Madrid at the moment. His injuries. He has had a fair few injuries, but again, if they have a backup left back, I'm sure it's not going to be a problem. Seems like the only thing that needs to be done now is just an agreement with Bayern, or the player to agree with Bayern that he's going to stay for a year and leave on a free. But again, like you said, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean their depth there is pretty good. I mean, they have Ferland Mendy, they have Fran Garcia there as well. Like, they've got pretty good backup. Even Camavinga was playing there last year, wasn't he? Towards the end of the season. You're definitely right. The amount of kind of disposable income that Real Madrid now have to kind of fine tune those other areas of the squad, because of how intelligent they've been in the transfer market over the last few years. yeah, it really does set an example to the rest of the elite clubs in Europe, and pretty mad to think, given they splashed that 100 million on Eden Hazard only 5 years ago, and how that turned out. But that's all we have time for on this week's episode of Monday Vibes. What did you make of the weekend's action? What do you make of Alphonso Davies to Real Madrid? Is the writing on the wall for the rest of Europe, especially with the new Champions League format kicking off next season? Sam, thanks so much for joining me for your Football Daily debut.
I wish it could have been under better circumstances than yesterday, but hopefully next time.
You were pretty excited when I asked you on the show the other day, but I think you were quite a bit more confident.
I was going to rock up here wearing a Chelsea shirt with a fake trophy, but let's pretend that wasn't going to happen.
That would have been absolutely unacceptable. So glad you didn't, and glad Chelsea lost in that respect. But yeah, thanks for joining me. And if you enjoyed this video, of course, subscribe to Football Daily if you haven't done so already. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and we will see you later in the week.